we're gonna work it out right now.
Brothers and sisters, we're joined together today to believe in the power of metal. Metal Church.
Brothers and sisters, sing what Jesse has for thee. Your creativity, right there on your TV. Skills for you and me, partake in the glory, Metal Jesse James Metal Church. Metal Church.
So this is called a number 2 pettingill. This came off an aircraft carrier in the 30s and 40s, and these are pretty rare because this size was for fixing planes on site. So like if a plane got a bunch of flak in it fighting in the Midway or wherever, these were underneath the deck, and they would make a new panel for like a World War II plane right on site, riveted on. Well, at the end of the war, to save fuel and to save weight, most of these things got dumped into the ocean. So to have like a cool Air Force one with all the Air Force tags on it's pretty rare. So what we're gonna do is these thumbnail dies, we're gonna feed our metal in just until our mark that we made and feed it back out, and we're gonna keep going. It's gonna take this outer dimension here and it's gonna make it smaller, in a sense curving it over. And then once we start to get the curve to happen, we'll pull this down and make it curve even over more. So what we want to do is get it to curve to 90. We could probably get it to curve a little bit past 90, but then we'll start to arc the metal and it'll start changing this dimension here. And we want to keep this surface pretty flat. So we'll go ahead and start. Now see what that does is that makes a little tuck. Now this upper die is a horseshoe die, and it'll pull it back out and it'll collapse that metal in on itself. The metal doesn't have anywhere to go, a sense taking it and pounding it closer. You know, it seems like it doesn't work, but in reality it worked. Nothing works better than this. So. So that's just one pass. The hardest thing about doing hammer work is it seems like you're really destroying the metal because there's an intermittent stage that looks like it's really, really twisted and screwed up. But in reality, you can see how it's already curving and pulling over. If we take it and put it on the tank, then you can see how it's starting to pull it down. So, you know, another couple passes, then it'll suck it up super tight. Now where we shrunk these little horseshoe things, instead of going over the same spot, we want to go in between because that's metal that hasn't been shrunk already. So it's, you know, if we just keep hammering the same spot, it's gonna probably stress fracture it. So what we'll do is we'll go another pass all the way in between all these shrinks that we already did.
A power hammer is a very expensive and sought after tool, and there's people like me that try to find them all over the world, but you don't have to have one to do these kind of shapes. You know, you can tuck technique is like how they used to make suits of armor, where they hammer it by hand, metal in on itself, or you can just use those cheapy hand shrinkers that catalogs sell.
Now that's about 4 complete passes it took to get that to turn all the way over, and it's probably at about a 70-degree angle. It can still come over more, but what we'll do is see what it can only pulls down so far on this machine, since the hard turning's already been done, you can shrink it by hand, or what I use is like a Pullmax, you know, and if we tried to shrink it this much on a shrinking machine that grabbed it and pulled it together, it turns it into a potato chip. You know, it moves the metal around so much that it's not stable. This thing's solid and strong, and it's right where it is right where it's gonna go. You know, there's no guesswork. So this is a Pullmax machine from the 1930s, and it's the same thing. You can adjust the stroke and how close or tight it hits. And this is a senior trimmer, which is a pretty rare. There's only about 4 of these machines that exist, and it has the big C-frame, so you can get parts like way into it. And the thing that I like about it is this lower die holder comes way out. So if I want to really turn parts over 90, especially small parts like a gas tank, which I'm making mostly, then it has a lot of extra room to do that. And it's the same thing as those dies, but just a lot smaller, and they move the metal a lot slower. You know, if we tried to move the metal this much, it would take us 2 hours on this machine. But to settle this edge down and get that you know, potato chip effect out of it and get it nice and symmetrical and all in a straight line, this is the perfect machine. So what we'll do is we'll just go in the thickness of the dies, which is, we're just gonna do about that lower inch, you know, and then suck that down so it's straight.
Power hammers are very, very powerful pieces of machinery, and they can probably knock your finger off with one hit. So you really want to take extra caution to not get your fingers or your hand too close to it, because all it'll take is one time and then that's it. But at least you'll know not to do that again. Don't lick it. That thing will bite you.
So we made 3 complete passes at 1 inch, going in about an inch. You know, I went all the way over, all the way back, and all the way over again. And then I went some little baby, just the tip of the thumbnail die, just barely going in and just kissing that edge a little bit, and the excess metal that was wavy, then that settles it down.
Now that the front edge is formed, run the sides on the Pullmax to shape the rest of the top. Make sure you keep the same number of strokes on each side so the metal stays even.
Now we've got a 90-degree edge, and we've got our overall tank shape roughed out. You know, we need to measure this with a radius gauge, and then it's the die selection. We're at the real important place now, which is how we're gonna hammer this. This corner is a 2-inch radius. If that's a 2-inch radius, then what we put underneath this metal needs to be a 2-inch radius. So then we need to go with a 2-inch die. You know, that's the thing that's cool about metal. If you have the right tools and you have a good plan in front of you, then you can make stuff happen really fast. So let's get a 2-inch die, and we'll go ahead and do it on the Planisher, see what happens. So this is a planishing hammer, a little 24-inch Chicago pneumatic from like probably the 40s. A machine like this ran in an aircraft factory for 3 shifts, 24 hours a day, and they're still good. So what we need to do, we figured we needed a 2-inch die for the bottoms. That's where we need to be at. We'll put it in there and start hammering on it.
The Planisher is the same as a power hammer, except it hits 1,000 times faster, and you control the pressure with your foot. The harder you push with your foot, the harder it presses on the metal. Planishing's a f***ed up word.
I love this hammer, literally. That straightened us back out, putting that edge in it. So what we need to do is this edge right here, we got to shrink it and make it shorter and pull it down. So we should try it on the shrinker.
Any shrinking machine will do the trick. This happens to be a hydraulic Marchant. With each pass, it slowly grabs the metal and pulls it closer together. Now that we have our top piece formed, the next step is to make the sides of the tank.